Representative Patrick Kennedy, D-Mass, became a vocal proponent on the issue after disclosing his own battles with bipolar disorder and drug addiction, and remains an advocate on the issue now that he is out of Congress. And now, with Democrats in the majority for the first time in his 6-year congressional career, Representative Joseph Kennedy III, D-Mass, the grandson of former Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, has made mental illness a focus of his legislative efforts. In an interview last week on the News Pulse News podcast The Long Game, Kennedy said he came to the issue in part because during a stint as a prosecutor, he saw the ways in which mental illness drove a cycle of drug addiction and criminal activity that he believes can be prevented through greater access to treatment. But, Kennedy said, the lack of treatment options, combined with a stigmatization of those who suffer, means we essentially have criminalized mental illnesses. Kennedy is now pushing a series of proposals on the issue, which he sees as the kind of legislation that can pass into law now that Democrats control the House, even though they remain a minority in the Senate and do not control the White House. One bill is intended to hold insurance companies accountable if they don't follow the law requiring them to offer coverage for treatment, and another would raise Medicaid reimbursement rates for mental illness treatment. Kennedy was careful when asked what lessons he might share with freshman members of Congress like Ocasio-Cortez. "Far be it from me to give anybody advice," he said. "We've got some extremely talented members here that are able to drive a message, and their values and vision for our country, and more power to them. I do think that as you turn those values into policy, this is about building coalitions, and there's various ways to do that. That's the way that this discourse is supposed to work, and yet, I would love to see more of that rather than just because I can, I will," Kennedy said. "I don't think that there's a problem with aspirational legislation aiming high and saying, hey, this is where, that's what the North Star should be," Kennedy said. "But I think if you'll kind of look at the structures of saying you've got to pass the House majority institution, get the majority of votes, you can pass it. You got to pass the Senate, you're going to need at least some number of folks from the opposite party. Unless you think Democrats are getting to 60 sometime soon, which I'm not sure we are. It is the first time since the 38-year-old Kennedy was elected to the House in 2012 that Democrats have been in the majority in that chamber, and so now there is more opportunity for any ambitious Democratic legislator to get ideas off the ground rather than watching them go nowhere, as they often did when Republicans set the agenda in the majority prior to 2018. Being in the majority in the House is great in that you get to write a bill, you get your colleagues from your own party on it, you convince leadership to move it, and you've passed the bill. Congratulations, Kennedy said. Been a wonderful 3 months. My first 6 years were a very different environment. But, he said, Democrats who are serious about solving problems still have to choose their battles and craft their legislation with the reality of a Republican-controlled Senate and White House in mind. If you still want to get it done, I still got to get it through Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. I got to find Republicans in the Senate that are going to be willing to sponsor it. I got to be able to get enough of them on board to get to 60 votes, and I need to be able to convince the White House or have them convince the White House. I am not convinced that that's the right way we should go, Kennedy said, though he added that McConnell essentially stacked the court by refusing to allow President Obama's nominee to the court, Merrick Garland, to even receive a vote in the Senate in 2016. And Kennedy said that the Republican Party under McConnell, and Trump, has not shown much of an inclination to respect established process or the legitimacy of the Democratic Party's interests.